In making an assessment about where lithium raw materials are at, you can't ignore the fact that China absolutely dominates the scene. They've done an incredible job in the last 10 to 15 years investing and continuing to build out their supply chain. And where they win is really in the value-added products category, all the way through to now lithium-ion battery cells and cars. Actually, they're also putting out some phenomenal product. But with that dominance comes risk for the Western world, and this really gets to the main point, and we think ultimately one of the reasons why Shagajuanan is such an important piece of the puzzle. As geopolitical risk escalates, and you can understand the rhetoric. Trump's out there saying, "Look, we're going to slap tariffs on left, right, and centre, and for that matter, exclude kind of Chinese product." And I get all that. Like I hear it, and I understand that the rhetoric. But the reality is something completely different. Because China is so dominant in the lithium-ion battery supply chain, and in fact in many of the critical minerals, it's pretty easy for China to play a trade war game with especially the US, because all they've got to do is turn off the tap. And it becomes pretty clear, I think, pretty quickly, what's wanting in the supply chains. And I think the end game is in fact quite different to the way people imagine the story today. What it forces is a realization in the Western world that they have no choice but to support localization of supply chains and the elements of friendshoring. The idea that certain locations in the Western world have great resources, they should be matched to chemical facilities that facilitate the value add, but it's an ex-China supply chain. Now, for those of you that are watching the media, you'll appreciate that some of these issues are already starting to emerge. And I think it's really just the beginning, if in fact concepts around tariffs and trade wars start to get more intense. So a couple of examples I've chosen. US companies manufacturing drones, actually in this instance in Taiwan, and China has said, "I'm sorry, we're not going to ship you batteries anymore." And they're a pretty specialist sort of battery. So it became pretty clear pretty quickly that the supply chain breaks down just by simply China turning off the tap or shutting the gate. Another example, relatively specialty critical minerals, gallium, germanium. China's been pretty focused on exercising its will in the event that it wants to hang on to that project, those minerals, and keep them local to the domestic market in China. The key here is Western supply chains are weak in lithium or value-added lithium raw materials. However, in most cases, we have the world's best resources, in which case a logical conclusion that you draw is to say, right, let's connect those world's best resources to future value-added chemical operations and do it ex-China. And if you do, you've got half a chance to divorce yourself from what is a pretty dominant China supply chain. I'm hoping that makes sense to everybody out there, and I'm sure inevitably there'll be some questions along those lines. The other thing that I often hear is people sort of worrying about demand growth. Well, I want to suggest that this is, in my view, is overplayed. Firstly, you need to focus on what's already happened. So here's an example. North America, either already constructed or under construction facilities in respect of cells, so cell making capacity and cathode making capacity. And it's huge. It's already significant, even though there's more planned. So there's already constructed lithium-ion cell making capacity that is by far wholly reliant on China supply chains and or demanding product that may not be able to operate in a circumstance where they're starved of those value-added raw materials. So it's already there, albeit currently supplied by China. So what's the alternative if China shuts the gate? Well, of course, you have to consider building your own supply chains. Europe looks something similar. It's not that different, actually. Europe's already built a lot of battery making capacity, but guess what? Where do the raw materials, value-added raw materials come from? Well, they typically come from China. So that's definitely something to watch. The second is inevitably in these emerging technologies, and I definitely put lithium-ion batteries in that category. Yes, it makes for volatility. I'm not discounting that. That is an issue, sure. But the big picture theme is that the adoption is growing typically faster than people would have originally imagined. And there's some key drivers that are making that happen. Firstly, the cost of the cells, and China's excelled here. They've lowered the cost of especially lithium iron phosphate cells. If you follow that graph on the top right, from about $125 a tonne down to approximately $50 a tonne in the space of about 15 to 18 months. And as those cells lower in cost, they broaden the market that they penetrate. As the cells get cheaper, in effect, the market grows. And this is one of the key issues that's being missed by the classic sort of Western analysis that's going on in the industry. The industry is moving faster than people are giving it credit for, in which case you would expect demand growth to grow faster than people give it credit for. Another anecdote that I really like to share is a little bit about what China, or CATL especially, was up to. In my former life, CATL was a key relationship. And they used to say to us back in 2017, we think mass energy storage is the end game. That's the main market. And we're going to just use EVs as a stepping stone to that market. Now, we sort of used to scoff at the time and say, well, wow, really? We thought it was all about EVs. But even then, CATL was saying, no, the main game is mass energy storage. And to their credit, that's a lot of what's happening today. So here we are. What is that? It's only 7 or 8 years later. And in fact, what they were saying is starting to play out for real. Cells are getting cheaper. China's got incredible engineering solutions for mass energy storage, and you are now starting to see their adoption. And that's going to continue. And that runs well beyond the concept of EVs. Of course, EVs are growing, but that's not the only market. In fact, probably a bigger market is CATL, and you've got the boss, Robin Zhang, saying exactly that. That's the end game. So the two key things that CATL is working on to grow their market is obviously the cost of the cells. Well, that's a big tick in the box. But then they're looking to penetrate mass energy markets and also to build EV platforms. And their logic is, we'll deliver you an EV platform. It's a skateboard with batteries in it. All you've got to do is plonk your body on the top. And that's the model that they are now pursuing to grow their presence in respect to the energy sector. But the principal piece of technology, the lithium ion cell, they're absolutely killing it. And costs are coming way, way down faster than people have assumed.